"I'll take that bet, Ms. Reynolds, but on one condition." David's words hung in the air of the conference room, causing his boss's confident smile to falter for the first time since he'd known her. That single moment would change the course of their lives in ways neither could have imagined. If you've ever taken a chance that terrified you or made a decision that transformed your life, you'll want to stay until the end of this incredible journey. Like and subscribe to support more stories that remind us how one brave decision can rewrite our entire future. David Parker rubbed his tired eyes as his alarm blared at 5:30 a.m. Another day of juggling his demanding job as marketing director and being everything his 7-year-old daughter Emma needed. 3 years had passed since Melissa's car accident, but the weight of single parenthood never seemed to lighten. He moved through his morning routine mechanically: shower, coffee, wake Emma, make breakfast, pack lunch, drop her at before-school care, and rush to the office before his boss noticed he was cutting it close again. Katherine Reynolds was known throughout Parker Publishing as the Hurricane, brilliant, demanding, and leaving destruction in her wake when crossed. At 38, she had climbed to executive vice president through sheer force of will and an uncanny ability to predict market trends. Her sleek corner office overlooked downtown, and her designer wardrobe was as impeccable as her expectations. David had watched colleagues crumble under her exacting standards, but somehow he had survived 5 years in her department, even earning reluctant respect for his creative campaigns. "Parker, you're late," Katherine stated flatly as David hurried past her office door at 8:07. "And you look like hell." "My office, 10 minutes with the Bradshaw proposal." David bit back a retort about Emma's fever the night before that had kept them both awake until 3 a.m. "Yes, Ms. Reynolds. I'll be ready." The Bradshaw account was their biggest potential client of the year, a luxury resort chain looking to rebrand. David had been working on the proposal for weeks, stealing hours after Emma fell asleep to perfect every detail. He knew it was good, innovative without being risky, elegant without being pretentious. But Katherine Reynolds was notorious for finding flaws invisible to everyone else. "This approach is too safe," Katherine declared, flipping through his meticulously prepared presentation. "Bradshaw wants something that sets them apart. This could be for any mid-tier hotel chain." David felt his face flush. "With respect, Ms. Reynolds, I've researched their market position extensively. They need evolution, not revolution. Their clientele values tradition with a modern touch." Katherine raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. "And this is why you've never moved beyond director level, Parker. No vision. No boldness." Something in David snapped. Maybe it was the sleepless night, or the years of swallowing Katherine's critiques while delivering results, or simply the dismissal of work he knew was exceptional. "I've maintained my position because I deliver campaigns that succeed, not just ones that look flashy in presentations," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "My approach has grown the Henderson account by 40% in 2 years." The conference room fell silent. No one spoke to Katherine Reynolds this way. Her gray eyes narrowed dangerously, and David briefly wondered if he'd be clearing out his desk by lunch. "You think you know better than me, Parker?" she asked, her voice deceptively soft. "On this particular client?" "Yes, I believe I do." A strange expression crossed Katherine's face, something like surprise, followed by calculation. "I propose a bet. We present both approaches to the board tomorrow, yours and my revised version. Whoever's approach they select wins." David hesitated. Office politics were dangerous enough without directly challenging the EVP. "And what are the stakes?" "If I win, you work directly under me for the next 6 months. Weekends. Late nights. Whatever I need to teach you how to think beyond the safe and predictable." David thought of Emma, of soccer games already missed and school events attended by babysitters. "And if I win?" Katherine smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "Name your prize, Parker." The words left his mouth before he could reconsider. If I win, you spend one weekend doing exactly what I do, the full single-parent experience. From Friday night to Sunday night, you live my life. The room fell so quiet David could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Catherine's assistants exchanged glances of horror. No one asked Katherine Reynolds to step into someone else's shoes, especially not a life involving children, sticky fingers, and suburban routine. After what felt like an eternity, Katherine extended her hand. Deal. But I have one condition as well. Whoever loses admits it publicly at the next all-hands meeting. David took her hand, noting how surprisingly warm it was. I accept. But my condition still stands, the full experience. No assistance, no escapes, no luxury shortcuts. I'm not afraid of a child, Parker, Katherine said dismissively. How hard can it be? David almost laughed. We'll see, won't we? The next 24 hours passed in a blur. David refined his presentation while Katherine worked with her team on her alternative approach. When they entered the boardroom, David felt a strange calm. He knew his work was solid, grounded in research and experience. Katherine presented first, her approach sleek and modern with bold color schemes and innovative digital integration. She spoke with the confidence of someone unaccustomed to being challenged. When David's turn came, he focused on the client's history and clientele, presenting a campaign that honored tradition while subtly modernizing their image. When the board president announced they were going with David's approach, the silence was deafening. Katherine's face remained perfectly composed, but he could see the white-knuckled grip she had on her pen. David kept his own victory restrained, offering only a professional nod. I'll see you Friday at 6, Ms. Reynolds, he said quietly as they left the boardroom. Pack casual clothes. Nothing designer. Katherine stiffened. I always honor my wagers, Parker. Friday evening arrived, and David felt a flutter of nervousness as he waited for Katherine to arrive at his modest suburban home. Emma bounced excitedly by the window. David had explained they would have a guest who needed to learn about their life, which Emma had interpreted as an extended playdate. The sleek BMW looked utterly out of place in his driveway. Katherine emerged looking like she was prepared for a photo shoot rather than a weekend of parenting, in crisp jeans that probably cost more than his monthly car payment and a cashmere sweater. Welcome to real life, David said, opening the door. Emma, this is Ms. Reynolds. You can call me Katherine, she said, awkwardly extending her hand to the child. Emma ignored the hand and wrapped her arms around Katherine's waist. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Tommy at school says when grown-ups have sleepovers they're boyfriend and girlfriend. David watched with amusement as Katherine's composed facade cracked slightly. No, honey. Ms. Reynolds is my boss. She's here to learn about what our life is like. Oh, Emma said, disappointment evident. Daddy needs a girlfriend. He's lonely. David cleared his throat. Emma, why don't you show Katherine your room while I finish dinner? Katherine followed Emma down the hallway, looking as though she was entering foreign territory. David heard Emma's excited chatter about her stuffed animals and dance recital as he returned to the kitchen to finish the spaghetti. Friday night was always pasta night in the Parker household. Dinner was the first revelation. Katherine watched in barely concealed horror as Emma dropped spaghetti on the floor, talked with her mouth full, and asked inappropriate questions about why Katherine didn't have any babies of her own. I've focused on my career, Katherine answered stiffly. But don't you get lonely? Emma persisted. Daddy says everybody needs somebody to love. David intervened. Emma, that's enough questions. Finish your dinner so we can have movie night. Katherine's eyebrows rose. Movie night? Friday tradition, David explained. Emma picks the movie, we make popcorn, and we watch together. No phones, no work, just family time. I don't remember agreeing to watch children's movies, Katherine said under her breath. David smiled. Full experience, remember? The bet was your idea. 3 hours later, Katherine sat stiffly on the couch as Emma, now in pajamas, leaned against her side, half asleep as the credits of Frozen rolled for what David knew was approximately the 100th time in their household. "She's heavy," Katherine whispered, looking unsure about the child using her as a pillow. "She trusts you," David said simply. "That's a compliment." Something shifted in Katherine's expression, a softening so brief he might have imagined it. "What now?" "Now we carry her to bed, tuck her in, check under the bed for monsters, leave the night light on, and promise to be here when she wakes up." Katherine watched as David gathered his daughter in his arms. "She does this every night? Falls asleep during movies?" "Most nights. It's our time together after long days apart. Even when she's sleeping, we're together." Saturday brought new challenges. Emma's soccer game at 8 a.m., grocery shopping with a running commentary on every item they passed, an afternoon playdate with Emma's friend Zoe that involved glitter that Katherine discovered still clung to her hair hours later. "How do you do this every day?" Katherine asked as they cleaned up the aftermath of homemade pizzas where Emma and Zoe had been allowed to choose their own toppings. Zoe had gone home, and Emma was in the bath. David shrugged. "She's my daughter. You find the energy. But you never mention any of this at work. You come in, you do your job, you handle my impossible deadlines. What choice do I have?" David replied, more sharply than intended. "Single parents don't get the luxury of excuses. I need my job, and you need results. The fact that I was up all night with a vomiting child or spent my evening helping with school projects doesn't change what you expect from me." Katherine was silent for a long moment. "I never considered what happens when you leave the office. Most bosses don't." The evening brought a new ritual, homework review, even on weekends. David explained that getting ahead on Monday's work meant less stress during the week. Katherine watched as he patiently guided Emma through math problems, never showing frustration when she struggled, celebrating small victories with high fives. "You're good at this," Katherine observed. "Teaching. She makes it easy. She wants to learn." "Like her father," Katherine said quietly. "You were always the one asking questions in training sessions. Always wanting to understand the why, not just the how." David looked up, surprised by the personal observation from a woman he'd assumed barely noticed him as an individual. That night, after Emma was asleep, they sat on the back porch with cups of tea. The suburban night was quiet except for distant dog barks and the occasional passing car. "This is what you do after she sleeps? Sit in silence?" Katherine asked. David smiled. "Sometimes. Sometimes I work. Sometimes I just exist without anyone needing anything from me for a few hours. It's very different from my evenings. Let me guess, emails until midnight, glass of expensive wine, industry articles?" Katherine looked slightly offended. "I have a life outside work, Parker." "David," he corrected. "If we're sitting on my porch drinking tea while my daughter sleeps inside, you can use my first name." "David," she repeated, the name sounding strange in her precise diction. "And yes, I do more than work. I travel. I attend cultural events. I have friends. When was the last time someone just needed you? Not your connections or your expertise or your money, just you." The question hung between them. Katherine stared into her tea. "My sister, perhaps. When her marriage ended. She stayed with me for a few weeks." "Did you help her?" "I found her an excellent attorney and a therapist." David nodded. "Solving problems. That's what you do best. Isn't that what everyone wants? Solutions? Sometimes people just want presence. Emma doesn't need me to solve all her problems. Sometimes she just needs me to sit with her while she's sad about her mom." Katherine's expression changed. "I've never asked about your wife. It wasn't relevant to work." I'm sitting on your porch drinking tea. I think we're beyond work boundaries. David took a deep breath. Car accident. Black ice. She was coming home from a late meeting. Emma was 4. I'm sorry, Katherine said, and for once her voice held no edge of judgment or impatience. That must have been impossible. Not impossible. Just necessary. Emma needed me to keep going, so I did. They sat in silence for a while longer. When Katherine spoke again, her voice was different, softer, less certain. I've never been needed like that. Not by anyone. Sunday brought church for the Parkers, another revelation for Katherine, who admitted she hadn't attended since childhood. Emma insisted Katherine sit beside her in the pew, showing her which hymnal pages to turn to with solemn importance. Afterward came the weekly video call with Emma's grandparents, lunch at the local diner where the waitress knew Emma's order by heart, and an afternoon at the park. Katherine watched as David pushed Emma on the swings, her laughter carrying across the playground. She sat on a bench, observing families all around her, mothers braiding hair, fathers teaching bicycle balance, parents of all types simply being with their children. You look deep in thought, David said, joining her as Emma played with a friend she'd encountered. I'm realizing how separate my world is, Katherine admitted. I've created this bubble where everything is controlled, predictable. And this world seems chaotic? Terrifyingly so. How do you plan anything? David laughed. You don't, not really. You adapt. You learn to find joy in the chaos. Is that what you've done? Found joy? David watched Emma, her face flushed with excitement as she conquered the monkey bars. Every day. Even the hard ones. As Sunday evening approached, Katherine helped Emma pack her backpack for school the next day, listening with surprising patience as the child explained which folders went where and why her water bottle had to be the purple one, not the blue one. When Emma was finally in bed, Katherine gathered her own belongings, preparing to return to her ordered, adult world. Thank you, she said simply, standing in David's living room. For what? Making you honor a bet you lost? For showing me what I've been missing. I've spent years believing success looked one way. You've shown me it can look entirely different. David shook his head. My life isn't a lesson, Katherine. It's just my life. It made me think about my own choices. About what matters. She paused, uncharacteristically hesitant. Would you and Emma consider having dinner next Friday? Not as part of a bet. Just, because I'd like to see you both again. David studied her face, searching for the calculating executive he'd known for years. Instead, he found something new, vulnerability, perhaps even hope. Emma would like that, he said carefully. She's already asked twice when you're coming back. And what about her father? Katherine asked quietly. Her father thinks you might have more to offer than you realize. At the office on Monday, the entire marketing department held their breath as Katherine and David entered the conference room. The terms of their bet were common knowledge, and everyone expected some form of public humiliation or power play. Instead, Katherine began the meeting with an announcement. This weekend has brought some clarity about our work-life policies. Effective immediately, we'll be implementing flexible scheduling for parents. David Parker will be leading a task force to develop guidelines. The room erupted in whispers. David sat stunned as Katherine continued. I've also realized our creative process has become too isolated. Moving forward, David will be co-leading major pitches with me. His perspective is valuable. Their eyes met across the conference room, an understanding passing between them. One bet, one condition, had indeed changed everything, not just for them, but potentially for everyone who struggled to balance the demands of work and family. 3 months later, Katherine joined the Parkers for their Friday movie night, now a regular occurrence. As Emma drifted to sleep between them, Katherine's hand found David's in the darkness.